The morning light arrives quietly, not as a sudden brightness, but as a gradual thinning of shadow along the ground. It slides across the uneven earth outside the long house, touching the grass that has been pressed flat by many seasons, then resting against the low wall where soil and timber meet. Nothing stirs all at once. The day opens slowly, as it always does here. A door is pushed outward with care. Wood rubs against wood, making a familiar sound that carries only a short distance before it fades into the open air. The breeze is mild, carrying no warning, no urgency. Smoke from the hearth drifts upward and dissolves without effort. This is not a morning of preparation for something extraordinary. It is simply another day beginning in a place that has learned how to remain. Movement gathers little by little. Someone steps outside and pauses, not to look far ahead, but to notice what is close. The angle of the light, the feel of the ground underfoot, the way the structure behind them sits low and solid, unchanged by the night. A hand rests briefly against the wall, pressing where earth has settled. It is not a repair in the modern sense, just a small adjustment, done without thought, the way one might straighten a sleeve or brush dust from a bench. Inside, the space is already awake. The long house holds its people together, their sounds overlapping gently. There is no clear line between rest and work. A tool is lifted, then set down again. A bundle of material is shifted to make room. Voices are few, and when they rise, they do so quietly, shaped by routine rather than instruction. Everyone knows where they belong in the slow unfolding of the day. Outside, the village responds in the same way. Doors open at different moments. Figures move between buildings, crossing familiar paths worn into the ground. The work that begins now is not announced or assigned. It emerges naturally, guided by weather, by memory, by the quiet understanding of what must be tended before time passes too far. Something is always loosening, always settling. Something always needs a hand, if only briefly. The houses themselves seem to participate in this rhythm. They do not stand rigid or sharp against the land. Their walls are thick and muted, absorbing light rather than reflecting it. Roofs sit heavy and calm, as if anchored by their own weight. Nothing strains upward. Everything leans slightly inward, held together by balance rather than force. These structures are not finished objects. They are ongoing conversations between people, materials, and the place they share. As the day grows brighter, sounds spread across the village. The dull thud of wood meeting earth, the scrape of tools against rough surfaces, footsteps steady and unhurried. No single sound dominates. Together they form a texture, the audible sign of a community in motion, not rushing toward a goal, but maintaining what already exists. What is striking is how little attention any of this demands. The people here are not thinking in terms of innovation or defense. They are not measuring success or failure. Their focus is narrow and close at hand, a joint that must hold, a surface that must stay firm, a space that must remain usable through another cycle of days. The work is quiet enough that thought can wander while hands continue moving, guided by experience more than intention. Over time, this way of living shapes not just the land, but the people themselves. The body learns the weight of materials. The eye learns how light changes across familiar forms. The mind grows accustomed to the idea that nothing is permanent, but nothing needs to be hurried either. What endures does so because it is attended to again and again in small, almost forgettable ways. Standing at the edge of the village, it becomes clear that this is not a place defined by dramatic moments. Its strength lies elsewhere, in repetition, in adjustment, in the refusal to separate daily life from the environment that makes it possible. The wind moves through the open space without resistance. The ground bears the weight placed upon it. The houses accept both without complaint. This story begins here in these modest motions and unremarkable hours, not with a crisis and not with a grand design, but with the steady continuation of a way of living shaped by attention and restraint. From this point forward, the day will unfold as it always has, through work that blends into observation, through structures that settle rather than stand apart, and through people who understand their place not as something to overcome the land, but to remain within it. The morning continues without ceremony. There is no clear moment when rest ends and work begins. Instead, the two overlap, sliding past each other until the difference no longer matters. The Longhouse breathes softly, filled with the quiet sounds of people shifting their weight, adjusting their clothing, reaching for familiar objects placed within easy reach. Light creeps further inside, touching the uneven floor, revealing the marks left by many feet over many years. The earth here has been pressed firm, smoothed not by tools but by repetition. Each step follows a memory held in the body. No one looks down to guide their feet. The path is already known. Near the wall, a bundle of materials rests where it was left the day before. Someone kneels beside it, loosening the cord that holds it together. The fibers give slightly, responding to practiced hands. There is no rush to finish this task. It unfolds at the pace it always has, shaped by the rhythm of breath and movement rather than by any measure of time. Outside, the air carries the muted sounds of the village waking in fragments. A door opens somewhere nearby. Footsteps cross packed earth. A low voice murmurs, then fades. Each sound exists briefly, then gives way to another, forming a steady background that never demands attention. Work, when it comes, arrives quietly. A beam is checked where it rests against another. A hand presses along its length, feeling for changes too small to see. The wood is cool, slightly damp, holding the memory of the night. It does not need explanation. The body understands what to do next. Someone lifts a tool, tests its weight, then sets it aside again. Not yet. There is time. The day is long enough for careful attention. Nothing here benefits from haste. As people move in and out of the Longhouse, the structure itself seems to respond. It does not resist these motions. It absorbs them, settling deeper into its place. The walls hold the coolness of the morning, but promise warmth as the hours pass. The roof remains still, heavy and quiet, shaped by seasons that have already taught it how to endure. Beyond the doorway, the village spreads out in a low, grounded pattern. No building rises far above another. No sharp edges break the line between shelter and land. Paths curve gently, worn not by design but by use. The ground carries the memory of every step taken across it, every pause, every turn made without thought. A figure moves slowly along one of these paths, carrying a small load balanced easily against their body. The weight is familiar. Muscles adjust automatically, finding equilibrium. There is no strain, only effort that fits comfortably within the limits of the day. Nearby, another person stops beside a wall, brushing loose earth back into place with bare hands. The motion is small, almost absent-minded. It is not meant to perfect the surface, only to keep it as it should be. When the hand pulls away, the wall looks much the same as it did before. That is enough. These actions repeat themselves across the village in quiet variations. Someone checks a doorway. Someone else adjusts a bundle left too close to damp ground. A piece of wood is turned to expose a drier side. Each task stands alone, yet together they form the ongoing maintenance of a way of life that depends not on dramatic effort, but on continuous care. As the light strengthens, the air warms slightly. Breath no longer shows as clearly. The shift is subtle, noticed more by the body than by the eye. Clothing is loosened here and there. Sleeves are pushed back, then pulled down again as clouds drift across the sky. The people here do not speak much about the weather, they feel it instead. Its changes register as sensations, a coolness along the arms, a softness underfoot, a breeze that moves through open spaces without resistance. These details guide their movements more reliably than words ever could. Inside the Longhouse, the center of activity drifts slowly from one area to another. A space that was quiet moments ago now holds movement. Another grows still. The flow is gentle, uninterrupted. No one directs it. There is no need. A child sits near the wall watching without being told to watch. Their attention follows hands and tools, the way materials are handled, the order in which things are done. No lesson is given, none is required. Knowledge here passes through presence, through repetition, through time spent close enough to notice. An older figure works nearby, movements slower but no less certain. Their hands know the feel of each surface, the sound each joint makes when pressed just so. They do not hurry. There is no expectation that they should. The pace of the day accommodates them without comment. Outside again, a small group gathers briefly, not to plan, but to share the same space. They stand together, looking at something that needs attention, a section of wall, a piece of roofing material, a place where wind has begun to leave its mark. Few words are exchanged. A decision forms quietly, carried by nods and gestures more than speech. Then the group separates, each person moving toward a task that fits naturally into the flow of the day. No one watches to see if the others are doing what they should. Trust here is built from familiarity, from years of seeing the same patterns repeat. The sound of work deepens as the morning progresses. Wood meets earth with a dull thud. Fibers tighten around wood, then relax as they settle into place. Tools scrape, pause, then scrape again. None of it is loud. None of it competes for attention. Time stretches, not because nothing is happening, but because nothing insists on being noticed. The hours pass in a way that feels both full and unremarkable, each moment blending gently into the next. A person pauses, straightening slowly, easing stiffness from their back. They look across the village, not searching for anything in particular. The scene holds steady. People move, structures remain. The land supports both without distinction. Work resumes without comment. The pause has served its purpose. The Longhouse remains central, not just as shelter, but as anchor. People return to it often, stepping inside to retrieve something, to leave something, to check that all is as it should be. Each visit is brief. The space holds them without demanding that they stay. The air inside carries layered scents: earth, wood, faint smoke. None of them are strong enough to dominate. Together they form a background presence as familiar as the walls themselves. As midday approaches, the light reaches its highest point, though it never feels overhead. Shadows shorten slightly, then linger. The brightness remains soft, filtered by clouds that drift slowly across the sky. The work does not change to mark this moment. There is no signal that one part of the day has ended and another begun. The same tasks continue, shaped now by slightly warmer air, slightly looser muscles. A shared meal will come later, but for now attention stays with the hands and the materials before them. Hunger is present but distant. It does not interrupt the rhythm that has been set in motion. Across the village, the same small actions repeat: adjust, check, set down, pick up again. Each movement reinforces the sense that this day is not unique. It is one of many, connected to those that came before and those that will follow. There is comfort in this continuity. It removes the need for anticipation, for worry about what comes next. The future is not a separate place here. It is simply another repetition of the present, shaped by the same care. The land responds quietly to this way of living. It bears the weight placed upon it. It yields where it must, holds where it can. The relationship is not spoken, but it is understood through daily contact. As the morning settles fully into its course, the village moves as it always has, not toward an end, not toward a climax, but through the steady maintenance of balance. The day continues, unremarkable and complete in its own way, carrying forward without asking to be noticed. And so the work goes on. As the day continues, there is no clear shift to mark the passing of time. The light changes almost without being noticed, softening as clouds drift and thin again. What guides the people here is not the sky alone, but the quiet signals of the body, a tightening in the shoulders, the steady warmth building beneath layers of clothing, the rhythm of breath settling into something even and unforced. Work flows onward, shaped less by intention than by habit. A hand reaches for a familiar object without looking. Fingers close around worn wood, recognizing its shape instantly. The surface is smooth in places, rough in others, each mark a reminder of earlier days, earlier uses. The tool does not need inspection. It has already proven itself. Near one of the walls, someone crouches low, pressing gently at the base where earth meets timber. The ground there has shifted slightly, as it always does. The movement is expected. With a few careful motions, soil is drawn back into place, patted down, shaped by the palm until it feels right. There is no satisfaction to be taken from this, no sense of accomplishment. It is simply what keeps things as they should be. Inside the Longhouse, the air feels different now, warmer, thicker, carrying the combined presence of many people moving through the same space. Sounds overlap softly: the scrape of a tool, the murmur of a voice, the low exhale of breath as someone leans into their work. Nothing rises above the rest. Each sound blends into the next. A person passes through the space slowly, careful not to disturb those nearby. They pause at a low bench, adjusting an item left there earlier, turning it so that it will dry more evenly. The motion is small, precise, practiced. When they move on, the bench looks unchanged, though its purpose has quietly been fulfilled. Children move in and out of the edges of activity. They are not directed, not corrected unless necessary. Their presence is accepted as part of the environment, like the walls or the tools. Sometimes they watch, sometimes they imitate, sometimes they wander away only to return again later. Their learning happens without being named. Outside, the village remains steady in its low grounded shape. Smoke rises in thin lines, then disappears. The wind moves across open ground, brushing against structures that offer no resistance. Nothing creaks or strains. The buildings seem to rest rather than stand, their weight settling comfortably into the land beneath them. A person crosses the open space between houses, carrying something wrapped close to their body. The path beneath their feet is uneven but familiar. Each step lands where it always has. There is no need to look down. Balance is maintained without thought. They stop briefly beside another figure, exchanging a few quiet words. The conversation is simple, practical. No explanation is required. Both understand what is being said before it is finished. When they part, each returns to their own movement, the exchange already fading into the background of the day. Time stretches again, not empty but unmarked. The sense of urgency that might exist elsewhere never arrives here. The work does not pile up. It unfolds at a pace that allows each task to fit neatly into the space available. A section of wall draws attention for a moment. The surface there feels cooler, slightly damp. Someone presses their hand against it, testing, then nods to themselves. A bit more earth will be added later. Not now. The day holds many such notes, kept quietly in the mind, to be addressed when the moment feels right. Inside, a low fire is tended with care, not fed aggressively, not allowed to fade. A piece of fuel is added, then another is set aside. The flame responds slowly, brightening just enough to maintain warmth. The balance is delicate but well understood. The smell of warmth and earth lingers, comforting in its familiarity. It does not invite attention. It simply exists as it has for years, perhaps longer. People pause more often now, though not all at once. One stretches their arms, rolling their shoulders gently. Another shifts their weight, easing tired muscles. These pauses are brief, unremarkable. They do not interrupt the flow of the day. Work resumes each time without announcement. The Longhouse continues to draw people back, acting as a quiet center around which movement circulates. Someone steps inside to leave an item near the wall. Another retrieves something placed there earlier. Each visit is short. No one lingers without reason. The interior space absorbs these comings and goings easily. It is accustomed to being used, to being passed through. Its surfaces bear the marks of constant contact, worn smooth where hands brush past, darkened where smoke has settled over time. Outside again, a small adjustment is made to a roof edge. Not a repair, just a reassurance. Fingers test the weight, the alignment. Everything feels as it should. The roof remains heavy, calm, untroubled by the breeze. A bird passes overhead, briefly casting a moving shadow across the ground. No one looks up. The moment passes without being noticed. As the hours move on, the body begins to register hunger more clearly. It is not sharp, not demanding, just a gentle reminder, a signal that will soon be answered. For now, hands remain busy. The rhythm continues. The village holds its shape through these repeated motions. Nothing changes dramatically. Nothing needs to. The value here lies in maintaining what already exists, not in transforming it. Someone carries water from a nearby source, the container balanced easily against their hip. The weight is familiar, the path known. They walk without hurry, stopping briefly to adjust their grip before continuing. When the container is set down, it rests exactly where it should. Nearby, a bundle of materials is sorted, each piece handled, inspected briefly, then placed into a new order. The sorting is quiet, methodical. It takes as long as it takes. Voices rise briefly from one corner of the space, then fall again. A short exchange, a clarification, a shared understanding reached without effort. Silence returns, comfortable and unbroken. The light outside shifts again, though only slightly. The warmth of midday settles gently over the village. Clothing is adjusted once more. A layer is loosened. Sleeves are rolled, then unrolled again as the breeze returns. No one comments on these changes. They are felt, not discussed. A person stands still for a moment, looking across the open space between buildings. Their gaze does not fix on anything in particular. They are simply present, letting the scene settle into them. The land, the structures, the people all hold their places. After a while, they turn and move on, drawn back into the flow of activity. The work itself remains simple: check, adjust, secure, leave it be. Each action is small, but together they create the conditions that allow life here to continue without strain. There is no sense of building towards something larger. The day is not a means to an end. It exists on its own terms, complete in its repetition. The sounds of the village remain steady: footsteps, tools, breath. Nothing rises above the rest, nothing breaks the rhythm. Inside the long house, the fire crackles softly. Someone adds a piece of fuel, then steps back, satisfied. The warmth spreads slowly, reaching those nearby first, then moving outward. People shift closer or farther away without comment, guided by comfort rather than instruction. A child settles near the wall, leaning back against its solid surface. They watch the movement around them, eyes following hands, tools, motions. Eventually, their attention drifts. They rest there, still and quiet, absorbing the day without effort. An older person passes nearby, pausing briefly to rest a hand on the wall as they move. The contact is light, habitual. The wall supports them without protest. Outside, the breeze picks up slightly, moving across the open ground, slipping easily around buildings that offer no resistance. The structures respond by remaining exactly as they are. Their design accepts this movement, allowing the air to pass without conflict. Time continues its slow progression, unnoticed and unmeasured. The work remains steady. The people remain present. Nothing demands a conclusion. Nothing suggests an ending. The day simply continues, carried forward by the same small actions, repeated again and again, forming a pattern so familiar that it feels almost invisible. And so the rhythm holds, quiet and unbroken, as the village moves gently through another unremarkable stretch of daylight. By the time the day reaches its middle, nothing feels new anymore. The work has lost whatever sharpness it may have had earlier, settling instead into something rounder, softer, shaped by repetition. The body no longer questions what comes next. Muscles move as they have been moving all morning, guided by memory rather than intention. The light rests evenly now. It does not brighten further, nor does it fade. It lingers in a pale balance, spreading across the village without emphasis. Shadows remain close to the ground, gentle and predictable. There is no sense of time passing quickly or slowly. It simply passes. A person kneels beside a low structure near the edge of the open space, hands moving through a familiar sequence. They lift a piece, turn it once, then set it down again. The motion is unhurried. There is no need to improve it. The arrangement works as it is. Nearby, someone else pauses to drink, lifting a container slowly, taking only what is needed. The coolness spreads through the chest, easing the warmth that has built with steady labor. When the container is lowered, it is set back in the same place, ready for the next time it will be reached for without thought. The longhouse remains present, steady, holding its quiet weight at the center of everything. People move in and out of it as naturally as breathing. No one announces their arrival or departure. The structure accepts each movement unchanged. Inside, the air feels thick with familiarity. The warmth has settled evenly, not pressing, not fading. A few people sit for a moment, not resting fully, simply pausing between actions. Their bodies lean where it is comfortable. Their hands rest in their laps, still warm from work. No one speaks about being tired. Fatigue is understood here as a normal state, not something to be addressed or avoided. It is simply another sensation, like warmth or hunger, that moves through the body and then passes. Outside, a quiet exchange takes place near one of the paths. Two figures stand close enough to share the same space without touching. A few words are spoken, brief and practical. One nods, the other turns away. The conversation leaves no trace behind it. Work continues without interruption. A section of ground draws attention for a while. The surface there has softened slightly, responding to movement and moisture. Someone presses their foot into it, testing the firmness. They shift weight, then step back. Later, earth will be added. For now, it holds well enough. The decision is made without discussion. Hands continue to move, fingers close around familiar textures, rough wood, packed soil, fibers worn smooth by use. Each surface offers a different resistance, a different response. The body adjusts automatically, applying just enough pressure, never more than needed. A child wanders close to where adults are working, stopping to watch for a moment. Their gaze follows the movement of hands, the careful placement of materials. No one acknowledges them directly. Their presence does not require permission. After a while, the child drifts away again, attention pulled elsewhere. Nothing has been taught explicitly, yet something has been learned. The village sounds remain steady. There is no peak, no lull. Tools touch surfaces, pause, then touch again. Footsteps cross familiar paths. Breath moves in and out unremarked. Time stretches wide at this hour. There is room within it for small corrections, for pauses, for moments when the mind drifts while the body continues its work. Thought becomes loose, unanchored. Attention rests in the hands. Someone straightens slowly, easing tension from their back. They roll their shoulders once, then return to what they were doing. The movement is small, barely noticeable. Nearby, another person adjusts clothing, loosening a tie, then tightening it again as the breeze shifts. The air is neither warm nor cold enough to demand change. Comfort is found in constant minor adjustment. The structures around them respond to these conditions quietly. Walls hold their shape. Roofs remain settled and heavy. The village does not react to the weather, it accepts it. A figure moves along the outer edge of the settlement, checking places where wind tends to linger. They stop briefly, press a hand against a surface, then move on. Each check takes only moments. Together, they form a pattern of care that prevents the need for larger effort later. Inside the longhouse, someone rearranges a small cluster of items near the wall. The change is subtle, a slight turn, a shift in spacing. The area feels more balanced afterward, though no one comments on it. The fire is tended again gently. A piece of fuel is nudged closer. Another is left where it is. The flame responds slowly, deepening rather than flaring. Warmth spreads without drawing attention. People adjust their distance from it instinctively. No one asks if it is too warm or too cool. Bodies decide for themselves. Midday brings no announcement, no break. There is no shared moment where everyone stops at once. Instead, the rhythm bends slightly, allowing for longer pauses, for slower movements, for tasks that take more time than effort. A shared meal will come later, but for now, hunger remains soft and distant. It does not interrupt the flow of work, it simply exists alongside it. Outside, the light remains steady. Clouds drift lazily, thinning and thickening without urgency. The land holds its quiet tone unchanged. Someone leans briefly against a wall, feeling its cool steadiness through their clothing. The contact lasts only a moment. Then they push away and return to movement. Nothing here seeks completion. There is no point at which the work of the day will be finished. There is only maintenance, repetition, balance. The people know this without needing to think about it, and so the middle of the day holds, white and unmarked, carrying the village gently forward through another stretch of ordinary time. The middle of the day allows space for attention to soften. Thought drifts more freely now, no longer tied tightly to each movement. Hands continue their work almost on their own, guided by a familiarity that requires little direction. The body knows how to fill this time. Someone sits briefly on a low surface near the longhouse, not to rest fully, but to change position. The weight shifts from feet to hips, easing pressure that has built slowly over the hours. The ground beneath feels firm, reliable. After a moment, they rise again, returning to motion without hesitation. Across the open space, a small task is taken up and set aside more than once. A piece is lifted, examined, then placed back where it was found. The decision to leave it unchanged comes quietly. Not everything needs to be acted upon. Knowing what can wait is part of the work. The air carries sound evenly now. Nothing echoes sharply. Even the scrape of wood against earth feels softened, as if absorbed by the wide openness of the day. Voices remain low, practical, rarely extending beyond what is necessary. Words are used sparingly, like tools chosen only when needed. A person passes close to the longhouse wall, fingers trailing briefly along its surface. The texture is familiar, cool in places, warmer where the sun has reached it. The contact is unconscious, a habit formed over years of moving through the same space. Inside, a few people remain near the center, tending to small tasks that keep the space orderly. An item is moved slightly out of the way. Another is placed where it will be easy to reach later. The changes are subtle, barely noticeable, yet they accumulate quietly, shaping how the space will be used as the day continues. Children drift through again, pausing near activity, then moving on. Their energy rises and falls without pattern. Sometimes they mirror the movements they see, sometimes they simply sit and watch, letting time pass without concern. No one rushes them. There is no need. Outside, the light holds steady. It does not demand attention, nor does it withdraw. It simply remains, illuminating the same surfaces it has illuminated many times before. The land shows no sign of strain. It accepts the presence of people, tools, and structures without resistance. A person bends to lift something small from the ground, brushing dirt from it before setting it aside. The motion is careful, habitual. Even the smallest objects are handled with a quiet respect born of necessity. Waste here is not dramatic, it is simply avoided through care. The breeze shifts slightly, passing through the spaces between buildings, stirring loose fibers, carrying scents from one place to another. The structures do not block it. They allow it to move freely, reducing its strength without stopping it entirely. Clothing is adjusted again, a layer loosened, then secured. Comfort is maintained through constant small corrections rather than decisive changes. The body remains attentive, responsive to these subtle shifts. A person pauses at the edge of the village, looking outward, not with curiosity but with familiarity. The surrounding land offers nothing unexpected. It is known in the same way the village is known, through daily contact, through shared history. After a moment, they turn back, drawn again toward the center of activity. The fire inside the longhouse is checked once more. A piece of fuel is shifted slightly. The flame responds gently, its presence steady rather than bright. Heat spreads evenly, reaching those nearby first, then moving outward without urgency. People move closer or farther away without speaking, guided by comfort. No one asks permission, no one gives instruction. The balance adjusts itself. Midday continues without pause. There is no clear dividing line between earlier work and what follows. The same actions repeat, altered only by the slow accumulation of fatigue and warmth in the body. Hands slow slightly, movements become more economical. Effort is conserved without being consciously planned. The body settles into a rhythm that can be sustained. A container is lifted again for water. The act is familiar, grounding. The coolness brings brief clarity, then fades into the background. The container is returned to its place, ready for the next person. Nearby materials are gathered and grouped loosely, not finished, not complete. The arrangement is temporary, meant only to hold until it is needed again. Nothing here is final. The village remains quiet, but not still. Movement continues in gentle waves, rising and falling without pattern. The absence of urgency allows each person to remain present, focused on what lies directly in front of them. There is no sense of anticipation yet. The day does not lean toward its later hours. It rests here wide and open, allowing work and rest to blend indistinguishably. And so the middle of the day continues to hold the village, steady and unremarkable, carried forward by small motions repeated with care, without hurry, without expectation. The middle of the day does not end abruptly. It loosens its hold gradually, allowing small changes to settle in without being announced. Light shifts almost imperceptibly, lengthening shadows along the ground. The warmth remains, but it no longer presses as firmly against the skin. Work continues, though its shape changes. Tasks that required strength earlier now give way to those that require patience. Hands move more slowly, not from exhaustion, but from an instinctive adjustment. The body senses the hours already spent and responds by conserving energy. Someone kneels near a small pile of materials, sorting them without urgency. Each piece is handled briefly, turned once, then placed into a loose grouping. There is no attempt to make the arrangement precise. Order here is temporary, shaped by use rather than design. Nearby, a person leans against a post, watching others move through the space. Their weight rests unevenly, one foot bearing more than the other. After a moment, they straighten, stretch subtly, and step back into motion. Rest arrives in fragments woven between actions. The air feels slightly heavier now. Sounds travel less sharply, voices soften even further, blending with the background hum of activity. Conversation remains brief and practical, more about coordination than connection. Shared understanding fills the gaps where words are not used. Inside the longhouse, light filters through openings, illuminating narrow bands across the floor. Dust moves slowly through these beams, visible only when it drifts directly into the light. No one comments on it. It is simply part of the space, as constant as the structure itself. A small task is repeated again and again, lifting, adjusting, placing, stepping back. The repetition does not feel tedious, it creates a sense of continuity, grounding those who perform it. Each cycle passes quietly into the next. Children linger closer now, their movements calmer than earlier. They sit near the edges of activity, occasionally reaching out to touch an object, then withdrawing their hands. Observation replaces play. Time stretches easily for them. Outside, someone carries a bundle from one place to another, pausing midway to adjust their grip. The weight shifts against their body. They take a breath, then continue. The effort is measured, deliberate, never rushed. The surrounding land remains unchanged. It does not react to the subtle slowing of the village. Grass moves gently in the breeze. Distant shapes remain fixed against the horizon. The environment holds steady, indifferent to human rhythms, yet accommodating them all the same. A container is opened and closed again. Something inside is checked, then left as it is. Not every action requires completion. Knowing when to stop is as important as knowing when to begin. Clothing is adjusted once more, sleeves rolled slightly lower, fastenings loosened, then secured again. These small gestures maintain comfort without drawing attention. The body remains central to decision making, guiding each adjustment without conscious thought. A person crosses the open space slowly, taking a longer path rather than a direct one. The choice seems unintentional, shaped by habit rather than intention. The path curves gently, avoiding nothing in particular. Inside the long house, someone stirs the fire lightly. The flame responds without flare, settling back into a steady glow. Heat continues to spread, consistent and reassuring. Those nearby shift their positions subtly, finding the balance between warmth and ease. The day begins to lean toward its later hours, but without urgency. There is no sense of preparation yet, only an awareness that effort must be paced. Movements become slightly smaller, pauses grow marginally longer. A tool is set down and not picked up again immediately. Hands rest briefly at the sides, fingers flexing once before resuming work. The moment passes quietly, unnoticed by others. The breeze changes direction, bringing with it a different scent, earth, wood, something faintly sweet. It moves through the village slowly, lingering before dissipating. People breathe it in without comment. The rhythm of activity remains unbroken, though it softens around the edges. Tasks overlap gently. One ends as another begins, with no clear transition. Time feels layered rather than linear. Someone looks up briefly, tracking the position of the sun. The observation is quick, practical. It informs nothing explicitly, yet it settles into awareness, guiding the pace of what comes next. Materials gathered earlier are moved again, redistributed slightly. The arrangement changes, adapting to current needs. Nothing resists this shift. Everything here is meant to be used, altered, returned. Children drift away again, drawn elsewhere by quiet curiosity. Their absence is noted only in passing. Space opens where they once sat, then fills again as others move through. The village breathes collectively, though no one thinks of it that way. Inhales and exhales align loosely, shaped by shared labor and shared space. The sense of separation between individuals remains small. As the day continues to turn, effort becomes gentler, more deliberate. The body listens more closely to itself. Movements are chosen carefully, conserving strength without sacrificing progress. And so the afternoon settles in, unhurried, unremarkable, carrying the village forward through repetition and quiet awareness without drawing attention to the passage of time. The afternoon does not announce itself as late. It simply arrives with a different weight in the air, a softness that rests on shoulders and tools alike. Light becomes warmer, stretching sideways rather than downward, touching surfaces at a lower angle. Work continues, but the body negotiates with it now. Movements are still steady yet more economical. A hand reaches for a familiar object without looking. A foot shifts position before discomfort sets in. These adjustments happen quietly, guided by long familiarity with the passing of hours. Someone pauses near the edge of the working space, not to rest fully, but to recalibrate. Their gaze moves slowly across what has already been done. Nothing feels finished, yet nothing feels incomplete either. The balance holds. Inside the longhouse, the air grows slightly denser as warmth lingers. People move around one another with practiced ease, stepping aside just before paths intersect. No words are exchanged for these movements. The space itself seems to guide them. A repetitive task continues at a slower tempo. The same action performed earlier now takes longer, each step given its own moment. There is no concern about speed. The day allows this easing. Outside, someone kneels to the ground, pressing soil back into place with both palms. The earth is cool beneath their hands. They smooth the surface once, then again, not because it is necessary, but because the motion feels complete only after repetition. A nearby sound rises briefly, wood meeting wood, then fades back into the broader quiet. The village does not fall silent, but its sounds lose their sharp edges. Everything blends more easily now. Clothing shifts again, a layer loosened, a tie undone and retied with less tension. These changes mark the afternoon's slow turn more clearly than the sky does. Children return to the aegis of activity once more. Their movements are subdued, mirroring the adults without instruction. They sit, stand, wander short distances, then settle again. Energy is conserved instinctively. Someone carries water from one place to another, stopping halfway to set the container down. Their fingers flex after releasing the weight. The pause lasts only a moment, but it is enough. When they lift again, the movement feels steadier. Inside, the fire is checked but not fed heavily. It holds its shape, glowing quietly. Heat remains constant, a background presence rather than a focus. Those nearby adjust their positions slightly, turn in shoulders or shifting legs. The air near the doorway moves gently as someone passes through. Light follows them in, then retreats. Dust rises briefly, then settles again. A tool is cleaned with slow, careful strokes. Each pass removes a trace of use, restoring the surface without fully erasing its wear. The action is methodical, calming. When finished, the tool is placed aside, not stored away yet, simply resting. Outside, shadows stretch longer across the ground. They overlap and blend, making boundaries less distinct. Paths remain visible but softer at the edges. A person looks toward the land beyond the village, not searching, simply acknowledging its presence. The glance is brief, but it grounds them. The environment remains constant, neither welcoming nor hostile, simply there. Conversation fades further now. When words are spoken, they are quiet and practical. Most communication happens through movement, a nod, a shift, a shared glance. The body feels different at this hour. Muscles carry the memory of earlier effort. Joints move with more awareness. Each action is chosen carefully, respecting the limits set by time and repetition. Someone rearranges materials again, bringing them closer together. The grouping feels temporary, adaptable. Nothing is locked into place. Children drift away once more, drawn by something unseen. Their absence creates space, which is quickly filled by the slow movement of others passing through. The longhouse holds its shape, unchanged by the day's activity. It absorbs sound, warmth, and motion, returning them gently. Its presence is steady, reassuring, unremarkable. As the afternoon settles deeper, work becomes lighter in both effort and intention. Tasks shift toward maintenance rather than creation. Holding replaces building. Adjusting replaces assembling. A final small task begins and ends without ceremony. It blends into the flow of the day, indistinguishable from what came before. The sun continues its quiet descent, though no one watches it closely now. The village moves in response regardless, guided by an internal sense of time shaped by countless similar days. And so the late afternoon holds, suspended in gentle repetition, carrying the rhythm forward without hurry, without pause, allowing the day to continue unfolding at its own unspoken pace. The shift does not happen all at once. It arrives gradually, carried in the way bodies begin to move closer to familiar places, in how hands linger a moment longer on objects before setting them down. The day loosens its grip, allowing effort to thin out without disappearing. Tasks now are smaller. They do not demand strength so much as attention. Someone lifts an item only to move it a short distance, placing it where it will be easier to reach later. Another straightens a surface that was never truly disordered, smoothing it more for habit than necessity. The air feels calmer. Sounds settle into the background, steady and low. There is still movement, still purpose, but it no longer presses forward. The rhythm stretches, breathing out. Inside the longhouse, people gather without intending to. Paths overlap more often. Movement slows enough that adjustments are made gently, without abrupt turns or stops. Shoulders relax, spines straighten, then soften again. A person kneels to finish a small task begun earlier. They pause halfway through, hands resting on their thighs, feeling the warmth of the space, the firmness of the ground beneath. When they resume, the motion is careful, unhurried. Children remain closer now, not actively involved but not removed either. They sit quietly, watching hands move, tools set down, surfaces cleared. Their attention drifts, returns, drifts again. Outside, the light has changed further. It no longer fills spaces evenly, instead settling in long bands across the ground. Where it does not reach, shadows deepen gently, without sharp edges. Someone gathers a few remaining items from the open area, carrying them inside. The weight is light but familiar. The act is repetitive, grounding. Each trip shortens the distance between outside and inside. A container is closed and set aside. Another is opened briefly, checked, then left untouched. Not everything must be resolved. Some things can wait without consequence. Clothing is adjusted once more, this time with more finality. Sleeves lowered fully, ties loosened. The body responds immediately, settling into a more relaxed state. The fire inside the longhouse is attended to with restraint. A small adjustment, a shift of embers. Nothing dramatic. Heat remains even, comforting rather than commanding attention. A person sits for a moment longer than necessary, not fully resting, simply allowing their body to register the change in pace. They rise again without effort, moving smoothly back into the flow. The ground outside cools subtly. Bare hands notice it first, fingertips pressing into soil or wood. The sensation is not unpleasant, only different, a reminder of time passing. Tools are gathered more deliberately now. Each is cleaned briefly, then placed where it belongs. The order is familiar, practiced. No thought is given to alternatives. Conversation is sparse, almost absent. When voices appear, they are low and brief, carrying no urgency. Silence fills the space comfortably, not as an absence, but as a shared state. A final surface is brushed clean. The motion is slow even. Dust lifts, then settles again. The task ends naturally, without marking its completion. Children shift closer to the center of the space, leaning against posts or sitting near adults. Their movements mirror the stillness around them. The longhouse holds everyone gently. Its walls absorb sound, its roof traps warmth. It does not dominate the space, but it shapes it, quietly guiding behavior. Outside, movement decreases further. The open area empties gradually, not all at once. Each person leaves when their last small task ends without waiting for a signal. The body feels heavier now, but not strained. Muscles relax into their length. Breathing deepens slightly, responding to the calmer rhythm. Someone pauses at the doorway, looking out briefly, then turning back inside. The glance is not evaluative, only habitual. Objects are now mostly at rest. Nothing is being created or repaired. The focus has shifted fully to holding, maintaining, preparing without planning. Time stretches, minutes pass without distinction. The sense of progression softens, replaced by continuity. The village remains awake, active in its own quiet way, but the day's outward motion has faded. What remains is presence, people sharing space, warmth, and the gentle after effects of labor. Movement continues, but only where needed. Everything else settles, allowing the rhythm to slow even further, carrying the story forward without drawing attention to the moment it changes. The village does not become still, it simply grows quieter in a way that feels natural, as if sound itself has learned where it belongs. Movement continues, but it is contained now, held close to the body and the spaces already warmed by use. Inside the long house, people settle into positions that require less adjustment. Sitting becomes resting without fully stopping. Standing becomes leaning. Weight shifts from one foot to the other, then stays there a little longer. Hands remain active, though their work is lighter. A strap is loosened and retied more comfortably. A folded piece of cloth is smoothed once, then left alone. These actions are not about necessity anymore. They are about ease. The fire remains steady. It no longer draws attention. Its presence is known through warmth rather than sight. Those closest to it turn slightly, angling shoulders or knees, finding the place where heat rests gently against the body. Breathing slows. It is not deliberate. It happens in response to the quiet. Chests rise and fall more evenly. The air feels thicker, warmer, easier to hold. Someone shifts position on the floor, extending their legs, then drawing them back in. The movement is careful, guided by comfort. They pause afterward, noticing how the ground supports them. Children sit close, their movements minimal. They lean into familiar shapes, a post, a shoulder, a folded bundle. Their attention drifts inward, no longer pulled strongly by activity around them. Outside, the open space holds very little motion now. A single figure crosses it slowly, steps measured, sound soft against the ground. When they enter the Longhouse, the outside feels briefly distant, then gone. Light continues to change, though no one watches it closely. It rests lower now, touching only certain surfaces before slipping away. Shadows deepen, but gently, without contrast. A container is moved slightly to make room. The scrape is soft, controlled. No one reacts. The sound belongs. Clothing settles fully. Layers fall into place. The body recognizes this as a signal, easing further. Muscles release tension held unconsciously since morning. A person rubs their hands together briefly, then rests them on their knees. The warmth lingers. Fingers uncurl naturally. Conversation does not return. Silence feels shared, intentional without being chosen. It wraps around the space evenly. The Longhouse feels fuller now, not with people but with presence. Warmth, breath, stillness accumulate gently. The structure holds all of it without strain. Someone adjusts the fire once more, barely touching it. The glow responds subtly, then steadies. Nothing more is needed. The body grows heavier in a comfortable way. Movements are slower, not from fatigue, but from lack of urgency. There is nowhere else to be, nothing pressing to complete. Outside sounds fade further. Wind moves softly along the walls, barely noticeable. The land remains, patient and unchanged. Inside, people shift less frequently now. When they do, it is with care, as if not to disturb the quiet they have settled into. A child leans fully against an adult, weight resting without resistance. The adult adjusts slightly, accommodating without thought. Time loses definition, moments stretch, nothing marks them. The sense of sequence softens, replaced by continuity. A tool lies where it was placed earlier, untouched. Its presence is acknowledged without being used. It belongs to another part of the day. Breath, warmth, and stillness dominate the space. The body responds by slowing further, aligning with the rhythm around it. No one looks outward now. Attention rests close on physical sensation, the feel of wood beneath fingers, the warmth at the back, the steady pressure of the ground. Movement continues only where necessary. Everything else remains suspended, held gently by the quiet. The village remains awake, aware, present, but turned inward, resting within itself, allowing the day to continue easing without needing to know what comes next. Nothing signals a transition. The space remains as it was, held together by warmth, breath, and the quiet understanding that nothing else is required right now. Time does not advance so much as it widens, allowing moments to rest beside one another without order. Inside the Longhouse, bodies remain close to where they last settled. Movement happens rarely, and when it does, it is small. A shoulder easing back, a hand shifting slightly to relieve pressure. Each adjustment is followed by stillness. Breathing remains slow and even. The air carries it gently, dispersing sound before it forms. The space feels padded, softened by the accumulation of calm. The fire holds its shape. Its glow remains steady, no longer changing noticeably. Warmth is consistent, surrounding rather than approaching. Those nearby no longer adjust themselves toward it. They have found their place. Children remain quiet, leaning fully into familiar forms. Their weight is accepted without comment. The balance holds naturally. Outside, the village shows almost no movement now. What remains beyond the walls exists without interruption, but it does not press inward. Wind brushes lightly against the structure, then moves on. Inside, tools and objects rest where they were left. Their presence is felt only in their stillness. Nothing calls to be used again. A person shifts their legs slightly, extending them just enough to change sensation. The movement is slow, careful, and then complete. They do not repeat it. Clothing lies settled against the body, no longer adjusted. Fabric holds warmth and shape. The body responds by sinking further into its position. The ground beneath feels familiar, supportive. Pressure is distributed evenly. Muscles soften where they meet resistance. No one speaks. No one needs to. Silence continues to be shared rather than empty. Light has thinned to the edges of the space. Where it remains, it rests gently, no longer defining shapes clearly. Shadows exist without contrast. A breath deepens briefly, then returns to its previous rhythm. The change passes unnoticed. The Longhouse continues to contain sound, warmth, and presence. It does not draw attention to itself. It simply remains, doing what it has always done. Awareness narrows to physical sensation, the weight of the body, the warmth against skin, the steady rise and fall of breath. Thought does not disappear, but it drifts, unanchored. Movement becomes unnecessary. Even the idea of it fades. What remains is comfort, familiarity, and continuity. Time loses any remaining edges. It stretches without direction. Nothing marks its passage. The village exists in this state without effort, without intention, allowing the rhythm to continue on its own, unbroken, unchanged, and gently held. The night does not arrive all at once. It settles the way warmth does, gradually, until it becomes difficult to remember the moment before it was there. The Longhouse holds steady, unchanged in shape, yet different in feeling, fuller, quieter, wrapped in the shared stillness of those inside. Breathing continues slow and even. It no longer draws attention to itself. Each rise and fall blends into the space, joining the warmth of the fire and the calm weight of resting bodies. Nothing interrupts the rhythm. The fire glows softly now, no longer shifting. Its light rests low, touching only the nearest surfaces before fading into shadow. Heat remains gentle and consistent, asking nothing from those who feel it. Bodies remain where they have settled. No one searches for a better position. Comfort has already been found, not through effort, but through patience. Muscles release the last traces of tension, sinking fully into rest. Outside, the land remains as it always has. Wind moves where it will. Darkness spreads evenly, without urgency. The village is no longer distinct from its surroundings. It belongs to the night as naturally as it belonged to the day. Inside, the Longhouse continues its quiet work, holding warmth, softening sound, keeping the world close and contained. It does not announce its purpose. It fulfills it simply by being there. Thoughts drift without direction. They rise briefly, then dissolve again, leaving no trace behind. Awareness narrows gently, settling into sensation rather than memory or expectation. Time no longer feels like something that moves forward. It becomes a wide, calm presence, holding everything without asking it to change. Minutes pass without being counted, moments rest beside one another, breath deepens slightly, then steadies again. The body responds without instruction, guided by the quiet around it. There is nothing left to do, nowhere else to go. The day, with all its small actions and repeated motions, feels distant now, not gone but folded away, waiting to be returned to when it is needed again. For now it rests. The night continues unbroken. The village sleeps within itself, secure in familiarity and routine built over countless similar evenings. Nothing needs to be remembered, nothing needs to be anticipated. And here, in this quiet space, you are free to remain as you are, listening, resting, drifting, allowing the story to fade naturally into stillness, just as the day once faded into evening. If this gentle journey has helped you find rest, you are welcome to leave a quiet sign of it. A simple like, a soft comment, or a subscription, so these slow stories can continue to be shared. For now, there is nothing else required. The night holds, and you can rest within it,